Hello and welcome to the latest episode of my house buying journey. So in the last video I shared what happened when we made our first offer on a property, and in this video I'm going to be sharing what happened after we made an offer and bring you up to speed of where I am in the house buying process now. So after we had the offer rejected, we were a little bit deflated, but we started to look for another property. And at this point, we actually opened up our minds to a different type of property. Before, we were trying to potentially buy too much for our budget, really, and we had to compromise on something. We was constantly looking at a 3-bedroom property. We don't need a 3-bedroom property at the moment. We would potentially like to start a family in the future, but that is not something that we're in a position to do at the moment. So we decided we didn't actually need 3 bedrooms. We only needed 2. I could still use the 2nd bedroom to work in as an office if I needed to, but also it meant that we actually got a lot more for our money. So the next step is we had actually already saved a property that we liked previously, which wasn't too far away from where we were looking. And because we now had this newfound outlook on the different types of properties that we wanted, it almost opened up the market to properties that we liked when we wanted to move into. So we made a viewing, I think this was a few weeks after the previous property didn't work out. We made 2 bookings actually to go and view 2 properties on the same plot, in the same area, on the same day, so that we could automatically compare them. One of the properties was completely refurbished. The current owners had made a really nice property. It was decorated really nicely. It had a new bathroom. It had a conservatory and it had a garage. And then the next property was directly opposite. It was exactly the same style property, but this one was a little bit tired and it hadn't had a lot of work done to it. It just needed a little bit of TLC. So we decided to look at both of the properties on the same day so that we could directly compare them in exactly the same conditions. We'd already driven past this area previously, so we knew what things we were looking for, and we went to look at the refurbished property first. This property was really nice. It had a nice new bathroom, it had a conservatory, it had a garage, it had the sun in the garden. It was nice. We liked this property. It had a converted loft actually, but it was the most bizarre converted loft because you couldn't even stand up in it. It was actually really claustrophobic, so I wouldn't count that as a plus for that particular property. And this property was more expensive than the other one we was going to view after. This property was really great. We just had a look around it. The homeowner was actually there to show us around this particular property, so that worked out quite well. And then when we'd viewed this property, we were going to view one directly opposite. We felt really embarrassed actually coming out of one property and walking straight into another directly opposite, but that was fine. We went into the second property, and it was quite good looking at them almost immediately after one another because you had a direct comparison. The properties, these were 2-bedroom properties, but because we were downsizing in the terms of the bedroom, everything was bigger. So the 2 bedrooms were bigger. The bathroom was a similar size to the 3-bedroom property we looked at, but the living area was bigger. And the garden, which is something that we were prepared to compromise on before, was also bigger. So we really liked this second property. When we left, we felt a little bit overwhelmed because we'd obviously had the experience with the 3-bedroom property that didn't work out, so we weren't quite sure what we wanted anymore. And if I'm honest, I felt like I wanted someone to tell me that this property was what I wanted. It was a really weird feeling that I felt like I couldn't make the decision myself because it's such a big decision, and because we are first-time buyers, I feel like we didn't have a definitive type of property that we were looking for. I felt like I wanted someone to just say, yeah, that property was really great, I think you should go for it. I kept asking members of my family, like, what do you think of that property? Do you think we should go for it? And they were like, you need to make your own decision. So we slept on it for a few days and decided that actually we thought we quite liked the property and we would quite like to go and see it again. So we left the property, I think we left it 2 to 3 days this time before we decided we wanted to look at it again. We learnt from the last experience that we needed to let it sink in a little bit, we needed to decide what we wanted, and waiting a little bit allowed us to do this. So we then decided to book in a second viewing for this property. By this point, actually, it shows you how competitive the market was at that time, is the first property that we looked at had already sold. So we knew that this property had already sold, but this one was still on the market. And the one we decided to look at was the one that needed a little bit more TLC. So we went back to look at the property, and we decided that we quite liked it. I went back with more questions I wanted to ask. I asked the homeowners how much the bills were. It had a parking space which was external. We asked them to show us the parking space. So I made sure that I'd done my research and I'd asked any additional questions that I wanted to know. And then we went away from that property, and we decided that we liked it, but we decided that we were going to wait a few days before we decided to do anything about it. We drove past it a couple of times at different times of the day. One of the things that I was querying about this property was the parking. It didn't have a driveway. It doesn't have a driveway. It has a separate additional parking space in some garages around the corner. So we decided that I was sort of a little bit cautious about whether this was what I wanted, but I knew that as first-time buyers and with our particular budget, there was something that we would have to compromise on. And in this instance, it was the parking or not having a driveway. So we decided after a few days, I think it was about a week, I can't quite remember, that we was going to make an offer on the property. This was really daunting. I wasn't quite sure how to do the offer again. I must admit, it wasn't a part that I liked about the house buying process. I found it really daunting, and I'm quite particular, and I didn't know if I was making the right decision by going in too low. I didn't want to go in too low and offend the homeowners, and I knew we wouldn't offer over the asking price, but I'm in an RN, we decided we really liked it. We knew it was a competitive market, and we just bit the bullet and went in for the asking price. In hindsight, maybe we should have gone in a bit lower, but to be honest, from her last experience, I just didn't want the stress of the back and forth, so I went in with the asking price. Maybe going forward, I would have gone in a little bit lower, but we went in with the asking price, and the homeowners accepted our first offer. So we were really chuffed. We had our offer accepted, and there was no back and forth. They were really quite chuffed. So in hindsight, maybe we could have gone in lower, because they accepted our offer first time. But this is a risk that you take with purchasing a property, and we were happy with paying for the asking price, because this was less than what we were previously willing to pay for a property. So we were happy that our offer got accepted. So that was really exciting. We had our offer accepted with the estate agent. So the next thing I did is I informed our mortgage advisor and said to her that she needed to start getting the ball rolling with trying to get a mortgage. And then the next stage was trying to get some solicitors. We didn't have any solicitors lined up. So our estate agents recommended solicitors. You don't have to go with this solicitor that the estate agent recommends. I had a few quotes from elsewhere, but because of the backlog with the property market and with the stamp duty holiday and everything, at the particular time that we were looking for the property, there were a few local solicitors that were quite busy, and things were taking quite a bit of time to get through. So we decided to go with our estate agent solicitors, and from the quote that we had, it was fairly competitive, and we thought it was easier. And actually, the homeowners also went with the same solicitor, so that was quite handy as well. So we started the ball rolling with the mortgage advisor and then with the solicitors, and we had to fill out all the information of our names, address, and I had to re-provide the mortgage advisor with our 3 months of bank statements and 3 months of pay slips. And I had to let her know that none of our expenses had changed, and she was able to get us a quote from a lender. So that is the next step. That's what we did. We had an offer accepted on a property, which was really exciting. So look out for the next video for my house buying process. And if you do have any questions for me, email me lauren@moneytothemasses.com and I will try and get them answered for you. Thanks for watching.